February 14th, 2008. Valentine's Day. Northern Illinois University. A 27-year-old graduate student guns down 6 students in their classroom, then takes his own life. Violent acts like this seem commonplace. Over the next 2 hours, we'll examine 15 shocking acts of violence. School shootings, workplace homicides, and shopping mall massacres. We'll remember the victims, hear from the survivors.
I looked into his eyes and then saw down the barrel of his gun.
And honor the heroes.
He had the gun aimed right at her head, and when I knocked him off balance just enough that the bullet missed her and hit her computer screen.
Stories of courage in the face of unspeakable carnage. This is Going Postal, 15 most shocking acts of violence. An early Arkansas afternoon. Students and teachers at Westside Middle School in Jonesboro had just finished their lunches. For 5 of them, it would be their last meal. Shocking act of violence number 15. The Jonesboro Middle School Massacre.
The nation was shocked at the severity of this crime and at the age of the shooters.
Family members said 11-year-old Andrew Golden was a typical kid who loved hunting with his grandfather.
Andrew Golden was raised with guns all of his life. His grandfather was a firearms dealer, collected guns, and they taught Andrew how to use them.
By many accounts, 13-year-old Mitchell Johnson was a confused adolescent, but adults were often impressed with his impeccable manners.
He was very respectful, always said yes ma'am anytime he was ever approached. As far as I knew, Mitchell was just a normal kid.
Neither boy seemed particularly prone to violence, but on March 24th, 1998, that changed.
They began their day by Mitchell stealing the family van. After Mitchell obtained the van from his house, he went to Golden's neighborhood and picked up Andrew Golden.
They burglarized the grandfather's house, got inside, and took a number of weapons.
They set up their stash of guns in the wooded line by the school, and Andrew Golden left the wooded area and walked over to the middle school complex and went in by the office door.
Officials reported at 12:35 p.m., Andrew Golden completed the next step in the boys' plan.
He reached over and grabbed the fire alarm, pulled it down, ran back to the wooded area where Mitchell Johnson was waiting for him.
They positioned themselves in an area where they were able to create what a sniper would call a killing field. They had a field of view of where students might populate.
Both the boys had a tremendous amount of ammunition on them and several firearms and, as I recall, some knives. They knew when they pulled that fire alarm that they would go out that doorway.
They went out like they were supposed to, and that's when all hell broke loose.
Students and teachers filed out the side entrance of the 6th grade wing. Andrew and Mitchell immediately opened fire.
They didn't have to aim. All they had to do was point their weapons in that direction and pull the trigger, and they would hit someone.
Some of the students said they began to hear what sounded like firecrackers popping, and then they could see red spots appearing on clothing and thinking, well, somebody's shooting paintballs. But the pain and the panic set in, and they realized this isn't firecrackers, this isn't paintballs, somebody's shooting at us.
I look and I see one of my teachers on the ground. I see another student laying on the sidewalk. All I could think of was, we have to get down.
11-year-old Natalie Brooks was the first victim. Within seconds, 12-year-old Stephanie Johnson was also killed. Then, 11-year-old Brittany Varner and 12-year-old Paige Herring lost their lives.
It was like some kind of battle scene. We had kids laying on the ground. We had blood everywhere.
As the children panicked, the actions of their teachers averted an even greater tragedy.
The teachers immediately began to try to get the students out of the line of fire and around the corner of that building and inside the gymnasium.
Teachers should never be put in the position of having to protect their children with their bodies. But that's what some of these teachers did, and some of them lost their lives.
Teacher Shannon Wright was one such hero.
She was a young, energetic, creative teacher. She taught language arts. She brought out a lot of creativity in the students because she would share things that were important to her in her life. Everybody loved Miss Wright.
I've had kids in the last 10 years come up to me that are adults now and say, you know, Shannon was such a great teacher. That's neat because that's something I can tell my son about.
The 32-year-old wife and mother helped direct 6th grader Emma Pittman away from the gunman.
Shannon grabbed Emma, and when she turned her around, she was actually struck in the back and in the left knee. And the one in the back that actually went through her rib cage and into her liver and is the one that did the damage.
Shannon Wright was the last person to die that day.
I learned a very valuable lesson about telling someone goodbye, because that morning was probably one of the few mornings that I did not tell her goodbye before I left.
In just 4 minutes, Johnson and Golden fired 22 rounds, killing 5 and wounding 10.
I go up on the scene with my camera, and it's like a war zone. There are bloody clothes, bloody towels, and there are dead kids.
It really just kind of rips your heart out that somebody came in and shot all these kids up for no reason.
According to police, Johnson and Golden ran for their getaway vehicle as police and SWAT units swarmed the school.
The sheriff's office is located very close to the school, 4 or 5 miles, and we were able to respond, and we caught them very quickly.
They reverted from being these methodical machines who had set out a killing field to being little children again and crying and asking for their mothers.
There was a lot of anger, a lot of questions of why did they do this? Who were they targeting? Had they been planning this?
The community was still stunned when the trial was taking place as they were the day that the crime took place. They were brokenhearted.
13-year-old Mitchell Johnson admitted his guilt at trial. 11-year-old Andrew Golden didn't testify, but his lawyer acknowledged Andrew's participation in the crime.
When it's all said and done, there's just 2 little boys that caused this crime to take place. There were so many areas of the story that really shook that town to its core.
On August 11th, 1998, Johnson and Golden were convicted on 5 counts of capital murder and 10 counts of battery.
They were tried as juveniles, sent to a juvenile detention center, ultimately to a federal center after they reached the age of 18. At 21, they were both released with a clean record.
Johnson got out of prison in 2005 after serving less than 8 years for the shootings. Golden was released 2 years later in 2007.
They are allowed to be free and do anything that they basically want to. That creates a certain amount of fear, because what is to say that they might not do it again?
I'm not aware of any remorse shown by either one of them. Neither one has ever made any statements as to why they did this.
Even though it's been 10 years, you know, every morning when I wake that boy up, I still see his mom. When I put him in bed at night, I still see his mom. When he laughs and he kind of looks at me in a funny way, he'll do things that his mom.
I wish more than anybody that there would have been a sign that I could have at least acted upon or checked out. I can honestly say I had no idea that anything like this was going to ever happen. All I can do is take what I've learned from it and try to move forward.
Coming up, one woman's attempt to stop an unspeakable tragedy.